Hello and welcome to this online training webinar from the Foster Care Institute. I am Dr. John DeGarmo, founder and host of the Foster Care Institute. I'm an author of several best-selling foster care books, international speaker and trainer, and my wife and I have been foster parents to over 60 plus children that have come to our home and joined our family. Indeed, over the years, my wife and I have had several children who have been in our home, children and youth, who have issues of non-compliance, and we have dealt with that on a daily basis. Our goal during this webinar is to bring awareness about non-compliance and defiance in youth who are placed in the foster care system. We're not only going to help you increase your awareness of what non-compliance and defiance is and how it impacts you as you work with youth in the foster care system, we're also going to give you some strategies, help you develop and implement some strategies that can best help you as you work with issues of noncompliance within the children and the youth that you work with. Now let's look at what noncompliance is. Quote, failure to act in accordance with a wish or a command, end quote. You know, noncompliance really is quite simply when a teenager does not follow the rules. Perhaps he refuses to follow the rules and the expectations that are placed upon him. Now, this can occur in the home where he lives or resides at. Noncompliance can happen at school. Noncompliance can happen in any sort of social setting. Perhaps you have worked with and lived with youth who are defiant and will not comply to what they've been asked to do, not comply with the rules and the expectations that are expected of him. Now let's look at why youth in foster care might not follow the rules. Well, I think it's important for us to go back once again and look at the feelings of grief and loss that youth in the foster care might experience. I want you to imagine a 14-year-old teen, a teenage girl, when she has been suddenly and without any true explanation in her mind, she's been removed from her mother, her father. Maybe she's been removed from a home from her siblings. She's been taken, in her eyes, she's been taken from her stuffed animals, her pets, her belongings. She's been taken from her house, her home. She's been taken from her relatives, her aunts, uncles, grandparents, cousins, perhaps even older siblings. She has been taken from her school, her peers, her schoolmates, her teachers. She's been taken from everything that is familiar to her and suddenly placed into a foster care environment, a residential facility, a group home, if you will. And for so many of these teens, it is a time of tremendous uncertainty, tremendous confusion, tremendous anxiety. For some, they might feel guilt. Perhaps this 14-year-old teenage girl feels that it is her fault. It is her fault that she has been removed from her mother and father. Maybe she feels she did something wrong. She might feel it's her fault that her parents might be incarcerated. She might feel it's her fault that her parents have abused her in some way. She might feel it's her fault that she has been abandoned by all those say that they love her. And for some, they might not have the words to express the feelings that they are experiencing. To be sure, it is a time of tremendous confusion. Youth in care, youth in the foster care system very well may not understand why they have been had to be placed into a residential facility. They may not see it as a logical move. In fact, they might see it as completely irrational. They might think it doesn't make sense. They might think it's not justified. They might blame themselves. Some teens might feel that they are no longer loved, that nobody loves them, that every single adult in their life has betrayed them in some way. Those adults who have said they love them unconditionally. And some teens may feel they've been abandoned. The National Children's Traumatic Stress Networks define traumatic stress as the following. Quote, the physical and emotional responses of a child to events that threaten the life or the physical integrity of the child or someone critically important to the child. End quote. And this is what happens to so many of these youth. They are going through a traumatic experience when they're placed into a foster care environment, when they've been removed from the home, however chaotic, however abusive, however neglectful it might be. It is a time of trauma. It is a time of anxiety being placed into a foster care setting. And as a result, they have physical and emotional responses. Now let's look at why youth might be removed from their home, why they might be not only removed from their home and placed into a foster care residential facility. Perhaps they are removed because of prolonged separation from their family. Perhaps maybe a family member has died. All their family members may have died. Perhaps they are coming from a home where there are various forms of abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. Maybe they have witnessed abuse to others. Many youth in foster care are homeless and are placed into a residential facility because of their homeless. They have been abandoned. There might be drugs or alcohol in the family. Indeed, they may have experienced a great deal of neglect. As stated earlier, they might have been abandoned, or perhaps their family members have been incarcerated or imprisoned. These are just some of the reasons why youth in foster care might be placed into a residential facility, might be placed into a place where you work at. Now, when a youth is placed into a foster care setting, there is going to be some type of effect, emotional effect, a social effect, a psychological effect. Indeed, for those youth who go from one foster care setting to the next, from one house or home or environment to the next, their mental health is threatened. It's known as multiple displacement or multiple disruptions. And as they go from one place to the next place to the next place, from one home environment, one living facility to the next living facility, one school district to another school district, indeed, their mental health is threatened and their academic performances often suffer as well. Indeed, youth in foster care, their academic performance is lower than your traditional students. On average, youth in foster care are 18 months behind academically than your traditional student, and they struggle with reading and math skills. For those teens who are placed into a foster care environment, they might not follow the rules quite simply because he is afraid. He is afraid. He's not sure why he is in this home. He's not sure when he will see his mother or father again. He's not sure if he will ever see them again. He's not sure if he'll be reunited with his other family members. He's not sure how long he'll be in this strange environment. Youth in foster care might be afraid of this new environment, afraid of a new home, afraid of new parents or staff members, afraid of new rules. Again, you can put aside all of the trauma, all of the abuse. It is a time of tremendous anxiety for youth when they're placed into a foster care environment. And for many of them, they do not understand the rules. The rules may make no sense to them. To be sure, many youth may be coming from an environment where there was no structure, no consistency, no stability, no expectations, and no family rules, so to speak. So they might be coming to an environment, the environment that you work at, where there are rules, there is structure, there are expectations. And this can be completely foreign to him, completely different to him, and he doesn't understand it. For these youth who come from an environment where there was no stability or structure, they may lack the motivation to follow the rules or comply to these rules. Indeed, a teenager might not have learned how to follow specific rules or guidelines or tasks because he came from an environment where there was no stability. There were no rules or guidelines or expectations. So he doesn't know how to follow the rules. He doesn't know how to abide by the expectations because it was never expected of him before or was never taught to him before. Now, those youth who suffer from autism, who suffer from ADHS, who have behavioral disorders or emotional symptoms, they can have an even greater time focusing on one or more tasks at a time. They may have a difficult time focusing on the expectations that are placed upon him. Now, noncompliance could result in age and development, age of the teen and his development. That teenager might not be old enough or might not be mature enough to understand the expectations or the rules in the house that he's living in. Again, he might not be mature enough. He might not have developed enough to understand that there are expectations, there are rules, and that he is to follow them. In addition, he might not follow the rules because he is impulsive. He's not necessarily trying to break the rules, he's not intentionally breaking the rules. He's just doing so because he is rather impulsive. This could be quite simply as something as simple as not staying seated in the school in the school chair when the bell rings. It might be something simple as not turning the light off at a certain time or not helping to clean up around the home. In addition, a teenager might not follow the rules because he's not developed a sense of right or wrong. He could come from a home that had no structure or stability or consistency. He could come from a home with no rules. As a result, most likely he's going to struggle with being compliant because it was not expected of him beforehand. The home he might have come from could have been so chaotic that when he's now placed in a home where there is structure, where there is consistency, where there are expectations in place for all who live there, he is most likely going to struggle with following those rules, with being compliant. So, what are some of the symptoms of noncompliance? Well, it could be defiance. It could be acting defiant. It could be yelling. It could be screaming no when he's asked to do something. It could be running away. He might make excuses. He might make excuses for not following through on the tasks that are expected of him. And these excuses could be a wide range of excuses. In fact, you might think some of his excuses are beyond ridiculous. Nevertheless, he's coming up with excuses because he's not following through on what is expected of him. He might ignore. He might ignore the instructions placed upon him. He might ignore or quote unquote say he forgot the instructions from his teacher, from the staff members, from a parental figure, from a caseworker, from a therapist, etc. Along with this, there might be incomplete tasks. Now, he might be unable to completely complete those tasks, to fully complete the tasks that are expected of him, or assigned to him, or follow the directions. For example, perhaps he's been asked to clean up his room, and he's unable to do so fully. He only cleans up some of it before he's distracted or before he does something else. He may become irritable. When he's asked to do something, he might be irritable, including asked to do a simple task like keep his room clean, help with the kitchen, take out the garbage, follow simple tasks that they're all expected to do in the home. Indeed, he might simply refuse to do so, When something's asked of him, he might downright refuse to follow the rules or do what's asked of him. He might suffer from something known as selective listening. When he's asked to do a simple task and he does not do it, he might say to you something like, I didn't hear you. I couldn't hear you. I didn't understand. So therefore, he simply does not do it. And he might tune out. He might just not even listen. He might not listen to staff members or a parental figure. He might not listen to the teachers or others. He could be tuning you out. We thank Katie and Katie.com for these symptoms of non-defiance and non-compliance in teens. So how do we help? How do we help that teenager that you're working with, the teenager that you are living with, the teenager that you're trying to help when he will not follow the rules, when he's not compliant, when he's simply defiant? Well, to begin with, it's important to remember this. We can't take this personally. When you ask him to do something and he refuses, he only half does it. He tells you he couldn't hear you or didn't hear you. He says he forgot or whatever it might be. Or even if he's yelling at you, no, I will not do it. When he refuses to do it, it's important for us to not take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. Remember the environment he came from. It could have been an environment of incredible abuse. It could have been an environment where there was no stability or structure. It could have been an environment where he was abandoned and neglected. It could have been an environment where he never learned to follow the rules, never learned to take place in being part of a family unit where they worked together, never learned that there were expectations placed upon him and he needed to follow those expectations, never learned how to follow the rules. So it has nothing to do with you. Has everything to do with this teenager and what he's suffering from and the environment he came from. So before we look at what we can do, it's important for us to recognize what we should not do. To begin with, when he refuses to follow the rules, when he's being non-compliant, when he's being defiant, do not make empty promises or threats. Do not make those empty threats that you know you cannot follow through with. Instead, follow through with what the guidelines are in your home and be consistent in that. If you're unsure what the guidelines are in the home that you work at, ask your supervisor. When he's refusing to follow the rules, do not give in to him. Do not give in to his noncompliance. Do not give in to his resistance, or do not give in to his demands. He might be demanding something from you. Do not give in to those demands. Do not give the teen extra or overt attention when he's being noncompliant. When he's sitting there refusing to do something that you've asked him to do. When he's saying he couldn't hear you. When he says he forgot. When he's yelling at you, no. Do not give him extra attention. But at the same time, do not ignore the problem, hoping that it will go away. It will not go away. If you ignore it, it may only increase. So with that in mind, what can we do? Well, we can take part in what is known as positive parenting. Yes, you're not the parent, but you are a parent type figure for this child. You are the adult. And as such, practice positive parenting. Positive parenting helps to create and develop a strong and a committed relationship between the teenager and the adult, the parental figure, you. Now, this strong, committed relationship is built upon open and honest communication and respect. Respect for the teen. He can quite simply tell if you do not respect him as a human being. And if you do not respect him, even if it's pretending to respect him, he will know if you do not respect him. If you do not respect him, then he will not follow the directions because he feels disrespected. In addition, positive parenting helps you to focus on helping the teenager, helps you to focus on better understanding the what and the why of discipline and behavior as a way of self control. Now, we do a deep, deep dive into positive parenting in the book, The Foster Care Survival Guide, as well as the webinar Positive Parenting Solutions here at the Foster Care Institute. I would encourage you to watch that webinar so you can have a better understanding of what positive parenting is and the skills and practices that come along with it. Again, you are not as parent, but you are a parental role model. You are a parental figure. You are the adult. And this will help you as you try to help and work with youth who are defiant, youth who are non-compliant. Now, you need to be clear and reasonable with your expectations. When you ask the teenager to follow a task, when you ask him to follow the rules, when you ask him to quite simply do something, it's very important that you are clear with your requests, that you're clear with what you expect him to do, and you're clear with the rules and consequences that are in place at the home. He does not need to be confused. There's as much confusion as it is with him. Remember, he's confused as why he might be in the home. And most likely, he does not want to be in the home. He does not want to be there. He does not want to have to follow those expectations. He does not want to have to live there. He does not want to have to follow rules from people that he does not know. So if there's any confusion, you need to make sure that you're very, very clear and reasonable. In addition to this, it's also important that you are reasonable and realistic with your expectations of him. Remember, he could be coming from an environment where there were no expectations placed upon him, where there was no structure, where there was no stability or consistency. So your expectations need to be very, very reasonable. Do not ask him to do something that he's incapable of doing. Do not ask him to do something that quite simply he can't do. He can't do it or he's incapable of doing so because he's not learned those skills. He is not mature enough. He doesn't understand it. It may be the first time he's been asked to do something like this. So it's important that your expectations of him are realistic. Don't ask him to do something that you know he can't do, that he's not mature enough to do, that he doesn't have the experience to do, or that it's something completely different to what he came from. Now, when you're working with youth who are defiant and who will not comply to what you've asked them to do, if there are a number of tasks that have to be done, or if there are multiple tasks that he needs to accomplish, you may wish to consider breaking down those tasks into smaller ones or singular tasks. Do not give him a lot of tasks or things to do because it could overwhelm him. He may not understand it. He might shut down, so to speak, because it's too much for him to do at one point. So make the tasks very manageable. Manageable one for his not only his age, but his maturity level or his developmental stage. Remember, simply because he's 14 years of age does not mean he has the maturity or developmental level of a 14-year-old. Indeed, most likely he does not have the maturity level or the developmental stage of those his age, of those at school he goes to, because he's coming from an environment where it could have been incredibly chaotic, abusive, neglectful, abandonment. So make your tasks simple and easy. And if there are a number of tasks he has to do, break them down into small ones or break them down into single tasks, one at a time, if you will. Now, there may be some teens who are defiant, so defiant that they're openly aggressive, openly defiant. They may be yelling at you, refusing to do what you ask them to do, calling you every name in the book, screaming and yelling. He may be trying to push your buttons. Make sure you remain in control. Remember, he has no control. He did not ask to be placed in his home. He did not have control being removed from his home. He did not have control being removed from his mother and father or his family. He did not have control of being placed into this foster care environment. He did not have control being placed into a new school system. He did not have control of having you in charge, if you will. He did not have control of these new rules and expectations. He did not have control of the new people he's living with. So, as a result of having no control, he may be lashing out and lashing out at you. So, not only do not take it personal, but make sure that you regulate your emotions, be patient, be generous, and be the loving parental figure that every teenager wants and needs. Now, he may be trying to pretend that he does not want your love or attention, but deep down, he needs it and he does desire it. So make sure that you remain in control. Even if he is out of control, you need to stay in control, which means not yelling back, not storming off, not throwing objects. Again, regulate your emotions and be calm. Now, if he is out of control, so to speak, if he's so upset, so defiant that he's out of control, he may need time to cool down, to take a break. This could be in his bedroom. This could be outside. This could be on the basketball court. This could be playing with animals. This could be playing music. It could be having soft pillows or cushions or sensory toys around. He might need a cool down area in the home where he has access to this. It's okay for him to go to his room for a short period of time if he needs to have that time to cool down or calm down, if you will. And that's okay. It's a very good chance the teenager that you're working with does not know how to bring calm to himself when he's overwhelmed with feelings and emotions he does not understand. When you ask him to do something, he might become so confused by it, overwhelmed by it, upset by it, angry about it. He might not be able to calm himself down. You need to help him develop some breathing techniques and relationship skills and tell him it's okay to feel the way that she does. And you may say to her, I see that you are upset, and that's okay. I hear that you're angry. It's okay to be angry. You just can't yell, curse, swear, throw things at us. Let's find a way to help you calm down. There are a number of ways that you can learn how to develop breathing techniques and relationship skills. You can do a deep dive online, reading books, talk to a therapist or counselor to help you with this. Remember, there may be a chance that no one has helped him with these skills. No one has told him it's okay to feel confused or upset or scared or afraid or lonely. Now, when you're trying to determine his behavior, why is he acting this way? Try to ask some open-ended, neutral questions. Avoid asking questions like, why are you doing this? Instead, give him an opportunity to explain or describe something in his own language, in his own understanding. When you do so, it helps him develop his thinking skills, his speech, his vocabulary, his language, his critical thinking. These are some examples of some open-ended questions. Closed question might be something like, are you okay? An open-ended question that you should ask instead is, how are you doing? Instead of asking him, do you like chocolate ice cream? An open-ended question might be, what is your favorite ice cream flavor and why? A closed-ended question might be like, do you like the movie? Open-ended question is, what is your takeaway or favorite part or insight from that movie? A closed-ended question is, what is your toy's name? An open-ended question is, your toy is beautiful, tell me more about it. A closed-ended question is, did you read this book? An open-ended question is, what made you decide to read this book? So again, a closed-ended question is a question that usually is a yes or no answer. You want to avoid yes or no answers. Instead, ask questions that ask him to give more detail, that involve thinking on his end, that it opens up discussion. Thanks to Gathered Again and gatheredagain.com for these examples of closed-ended and open-ended questions. Now, one way you can help a teen who is defiant is by forming a healthy relationship. Indeed, it is critical that young children and young adults form a healthy relationship with at least one main caretaker, at least one adult figure in his life in order to develop socially and emotionally. So take time to get to know him. Look for ways to spend time with this teenager by himself each day. Of course, doing so in a fashion that is not only safe, but healthy. Give him the positive emotional attention that he needs every day. Do not do so in a negative way. As little as 10 to 15 minutes each day makes a difference. Maybe going out in the basketball court and shooting some basketball hoops. Maybe working in the garden together. Maybe taking an animal for a walk. Maybe working on some homework together. Maybe doing some cooking or cleaning together. Or maybe just sitting down on the couch and playing some games with him or talking to him. Getting to know his hopes, his dreams, his concerns, his fears, what he's afraid of, what he's hoping to do in the future. Again, this helps to build relationships, helps to build trust and attachment. It helps him better understand that he can trust you, which will help him be more compliant. Now, it's important for you to recognize the reason for his misbehavior. There is a reason why he's being non-compliant. There is a reason why he's being defiant. Now, this misbehavior, this defiance in your eyes may seem very, very reasonable and logical to him. So it's important for you to identify, why is he behaving in this fashion? Is it because he's afraid or concerned or scared? Is it because he's angry and upset? Angry and upset at his birth parents. Angry, upset at being placed into the facility. Angry or upset at having no control over his life. Angry or upset because he's so far behind academically. Angry or upset because he does not understand the emotions that are overwhelming him. Angry or upset because of the years of abuse that he's experienced. Find out the reason why he's acting this way. It'll better help you understand his defiance. In addition, learn and understand how his family has been impacted by trauma or traumatic events. There's a chance that his abuse is generational. Perhaps his parents were also victims of abuse or neglect. Perhaps his parents were abandoned. Perhaps his parents were also in the foster care system. There is a history of that abuse, history of that neglect. And when you do so, find some services that are best for him. Personal therapy, personal counseling, different forms of therapy, animal therapy, art therapy, music therapy, pet therapy, professional therapists. And make sure you use language appropriate conversations when talking to him, language conversations that he understands at his level. Remember, quite simply, because he's 17 years of age does not mean he has the maturity or the development of a 17-year-old. So use language that is at his level. Now, not only is there a reason for his behavior, or lack of, it's also important to understand how his brain might have developed. Youth cannot reason, as part of the brain is not fully developed yet, for making decisions and for consequences. Indeed, the frontal cortex of the brain is not fully developed until one is 25 years of age or more. We do much discussion in a great deal of detail on this on several of our webinars here at the Foster Care Institute, and I encourage you to watch those at some point. Now, one thing you can help when he's being defined is to help him acknowledge his feelings. He may deny that he did anything wrong. It's important that you help him acknowledge that a poor decision was in fact made. Now, reassure him that even though he made a poor decision, that the consequence of that poor decision is not there to hurt him, but it's there to help him understand the importance of future good decision making, good behavior, and ultimately to protect him and keep him safe. He may not understand or appreciate the consequences that are in place for poor decisions that he might make. Indeed, the facility you work at most likely will have consequences for misbehavior, for defiance, for noncompliance. But you need to remind him that those aren't there to punish or hurt him. They're there to help him better understand the importance of good behavior and to keep not only him safe, but all of the youth in the facility safe as well. A great way to help those who are non-compliant is through redirection. Redirection is a form of discipline that is becoming incredibly popular in society. Redirection allows you, the staff member, the adult, the parental figure, to guide and steer his misbehavior from one that is inappropriate to one that is more appropriate. Now, when the teenager is redirected, it allows him to explore new opportunities, new ways, new experiences, and learn new skills. If you're unfamiliar with redirection, check out the webinar Discipline and Children in Foster Care webinar here at the Foster Care Institute. We also do a deep discussion and deep dive, if you will, in the book The Foster Care Survival Guide, where you can learn much more about redirection. Each of us loves to hear how we're doing good. We all love words of praise. We all love words of encouragement. There's a very good chance that the teenager that you're working with, the teenager living in the home, has never had someone praise him, never had words of encouragement, never had anybody cheering him on in some way. In fact, he may be coming from an environment where there was only verbal abuse. He was always being criticized, yelled at, cursed at, put down, if you will. Perhaps the only thing he heard from his parents were negativity. He needs you to lift him up in praise and encouragement. He needs you to be his personal cheerleader. He needs you to cheer him on, to encourage him on. So find ways to praise him every single day. Every day he needs to hear words of encouragement. He needs to hear words of praise. He needs to hear that he is valued and important. And this can be quite simple as something like, hey, you did a great job on your report card. Thanks so much for studying for that test. Wow, your room looks amazing. Thank you so much for keeping it clean. Hey, I'm so grateful for you helping with the cooking tonight. Wow, this floor looks incredible. Thank you for sweeping and mopping it. It's the best ever. Can you show me how you did it? Hey, I really appreciate you taking some time to feed the animals today. Hey, thank you so much for not getting in trouble at school today. I really appreciate it. I know how you struggled in school, but I appreciate that you did not yell or blow up at the teacher or fellow students. Again, every single day he needs to be praised, encouraged, lifted up by you. And don't catch him in the act of just being bad or doing the wrong thing or making poor choices. Instead, catch him in the act of being good. Look for opportunities when he is doing the right thing, when he is behaving in a positive way, when he is not yelling, not cursing, not being defiant. Look for opportunities when he is compliant, when he is following the expectations placed upon them, and praise him for doing that. Praise him for doing the right thing and look for opportunities when he is doing the right thing. Catch him in the act of being good, so to speak, and thank him for doing that. Sometimes when those teens are being defiant, we need to distract them. Learn to distract the teen from engaging behavior that is not allowable or acceptable in the home. Perhaps you can see that he's about to have that meltdown. You might distract him by seeing if he wants to go to shoot some baskets or play some pool or play a game. You might distract him by asking him if he would like to cook for you. You might distract him with some humor or some music to lighten the mood. Time in is a consequence, if you will, that you can use when the teenager is being openly defiant, non-compliant. Time in is a form of discipline when misbehavior occurs. When a teen is placed in time in, he's placed and remains in close proximity to you. It allows him to be close to you, or an adult, instead of away, as in time out. You see, when a teenager is placed in time out, maybe standing in the corner, maybe going to his room, maybe being placed someplace else, he feels that he has been abandoned yet again. In time in, there is not that feeling. Time in might be sitting on the couch while you are working on a project. It might be sitting on the chair in the kitchen while you work on dinner. It could be near you while you are working on a puzzle. Time in has the teenager near you. Now, youth are likely to feel their needs are being considered during time in. There's still a connection. There's still a connection between you and the teen before the consequence is presented. He's given the time, while he's in time in, if you will, to properly process the range of feelings and emotions he has. You don't have to get there and give him a debate. You don't have to have a discussion or a lecture. He's still just near you and does not have a power struggle. He doesn't feel like he's out of control because he's being placed away. He's still near you during time in, so there's no power struggle. He doesn't feel isolated or ashamed or scared as he might in time out. Time out is often a feeling of shame or isolation, and it gives you and the teenager the opportunity to talk, when ready, about the real issue at hand. Now again, during time in, you don't sit there and talk about the issue at hand, the choices he made, the consequences immediately. Allow him to cool off a little bit. Allow him to calm down a little bit. You may need to calm down and cool off a little bit yourself. When time has passed and you feel that he's ready to listen, or time has passed and he feels like he can talk to you about it, again using those open-ended questions, then you can have a conversation about the choices he made and the consequences, if any, of his poor choices. Now, for those teens who come from an environment of tremendous instability and no structure or consistency and abuse and neglect, while he's placed in the residential home, safety is a priority. He needs to feel safe, because when he feels safe, he feels he can trust you. He feels he can trust the place where he's at. Remember, he can be triggered by noises, by nighttime, by darkness, or ways that you don't expect, ways that are completely unexpected. So you need to remind him at all times that he's safe, that he is safe in the home, that nothing is going to hurt him while he's living there. Remember, those teenagers who are non-compliant, who are defiant, can wear you down and exhaust you. It can be exhausting living with and working with teens who are defiant, who are non-compliant. So it's critical that you take time for yourself, that you do that self-care. We have a webinar here at the Foster Care Institute about self-care, compassion fatigue, and I encourage you to watch it. If you do not care for yourself, you cannot care for him. And remember this, how you treat him is how he will treat himself. Let me say that again. How you treat that teen is how he will treat himself. So if you're harsh with him, he will be harsh to himself. If you yell at him, he will be yelling at himself. If you criticize him, he will be critical of himself. Instead, if you're gentle, if you're respectful, if you're kind, and you're loving to him, then after a while, this is how he will eventually treat himself. This can take time, to be sure, but it's critical. And above all, remember to smile. You can get past this, and you can help him learn that he can trust you. He can learn that nothing's going to hurt him here. He can learn that he's going to be okay there. He's going to learn to be more respectful and considerate and kind when you encourage him, when you praise him, when you catch him in the act of doing the right thing. For much more, check out the Foster Care Institute at drjohndegarmofostercare.com for many more resources on this topic. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter, and if you have any questions about this webinar or anything else I can help you with, email me please at drjohndegarmo@gmail.com. Again, we have a great discussion on all of this, including redirection, time in, noncompliance, in the book, The Foster Care Survival Guide. I encourage you to pick up a copy of that book so you can help yourself as you help teens in crisis. And we have a wide range of other books at the Foster Care Institute as well. I want to thank you not only for watching this webinar, but I want to thank you for doing a very, very difficult job. When you work with teens in the foster care system, it can be exhausting. It can wear you down. It can also be so very, very rewarding when you see that teenager learn to trust, when you see that teenager form healthy relationships, when you see that teenager graduate from high school and have future dreams and career paths, when you see that teenager begin to heal from all of the abuse and neglect and abandonment that he's experienced. So I want to thank you for helping teens in crisis. You truly are inspiring to me. For the Foster Care Institute, I'm Dr. John DeGarmo.